Good evening, everybody. Man from Ling here. And tonight on The Whisper in the Darkness, we are going to be playing the Miskatonic Museum, the first Mythos pack for the Dunwich Legacy cycle of the Arkham Horror LCG. The Mythos pack came out about a week and a half ago. I've had a chance to play it. And so tonight we are going to take a look at this Mythos pack and play through the Miskatonic Museum and see how it goes. So if you want to avoid spoilers, now is the time to leave. Let's get started. So I've loaded up my trusty version here of a beta version of Octagon. For those of you who are interested, this was the Arkham Horror module was put together by Tom over at Mythos Busters and his crew. I hear it's going to be officially released here very soon, so if you're interested in getting your hands on it, I would definitely suggest it. It makes playing Arkham Horror a real breeze, especially when you're playing four-handed like you see here tonight. This is the third campaign of the Dunwich Legacy I've got going. We've got Zoe here, we have Rex, we have Jim, and we have Pete. Now, in the first two scenarios, I did something a little different with this group. In the first scenario, extracurricular activity, the investigators decided to save the students rather than save Professor Rice. So instead of saving the professor and gaining his ally card, they didn't have to add a token to the chaos bag. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. In the House Always Wins, the second scenario, the investigators did not cheat, so I didn't have to add a token there, but they were unable to rescue Peter Clover before the entire building went down, unfortunately. That was quite a close game, very touch and go there towards the end. The investigators needed their very last turn to get out of the building. I wanted to take you through some of the cards in this scenario that I think are important and that we'll be looking for tonight as we play through to see if we can succeed and find the Necronomicon. Now, one of the most interesting things about this scenario is that there is only one enemy, and it is this guy, the Hunting Horror, spawned from the void. He has 2 fight, 2 agility, and 3 hit points. He is a monster and he is elite. He is a hunter and has retaliate. He has the forced effect. At the start of the enemy phase, reveal a random token from the chaos bag. If the revealed token has the skull, cultist, tablet, elder thing, or tentacle symbol ready, the Hunting Horror. And he has the forced effect. When the Hunting Horror leaves play, place in the void. Now the void is this out of play area that the Hunting Horror pops in and out of throughout the scenario. He only does 1 health and 1 sanity as far as damage goes, so he's a bit of a pushover in this form, but there is a trick to him, and that is this card, the Shadow Spawned. It is a treachery power, and it says Shadow Spawned remains attached to the Hunting Horror if it enters the void. Hunting Horror gets +1 fight, +1 health, and +1 evade for each resource on Shadow Spawned. And if there are at least 3 resources on Shadow Spawned, Hunting Horror also gains massive. So the trick to this scenario is the Hunting Horror is going to be popping in and out of play, and the more often it pops in and out of play, the more tokens it's going to get on Shadow Spawn, becoming tougher and tougher and tougher until it becomes a 5 fight, 6 hit point, 5 agility monstrosity that will be attacking everybody. And you can't necessarily evade Locket because of its forced effect will enable it to pop back up, and if it's massive, it's going to be attacking everybody. So that's not something we want to happen. And we want to try to avoid the hunting horror coming out as often as we can. And obviously one of the best ways of doing that is just to race through the scenario as quickly as possible, and win the game before the hunting horror gets too big. Now, for people who have played through the first two scenarios of the Dunwich Legacy, you'll be familiar with some of these other cards. The first of which is Beyond the Veil. It has Surge, and it says put Beyond the Veil into play in your threat area if there is no copy of Beyond the Veil in your threat area. And it has the Forced effect. If your deck has no cards in it, take 10 damage and discard Beyond the Veil. So this puts another timer on the game. There's 3 or 4 of them in the deck, so chances are one of the investigators is going to end up with one of these things. And with all the cards in the encounter deck that discard cards from the top of the investigator's decks, that's going to be a problem. Eventually they're going to have no cards and they're going to take 10 damage, and more than likely that will be game over for that investigator. So we want to beat the scenario before that happens. Speaking of cards that discard cards from the top of the investigator's decks, we've got Pushed into the Beyond. It is a hex. Choose and shuffle a non-story asset you control into your deck and discard the top 3 cards of your deck. If a copy of that asset is discarded, take 2 horror. So asset hate is a problem in this scenario, along with, I believe there's a copy or 2 of Crypt Chill in there. So not only are you going to be discarding your assets, but you're going to be discarding cards from the top of your deck, and you're going to be taking horror if you discard that asset that you shuffled back in. So we're going to want to try to keep a lot of assets on the table in order to avoid losing our good ones. One of the other nasty cards in this scenario is Terror from Beyond. It's a treachery with the Hex and Terror traits. It's Peril. Peril is a little difficult to deal with when you're playing multiplayer, so we'll do our best to make the choice without looking at what all the other investigators have. It says choose one of the following card types: asset, event, or skill. Each player must discard each card in his or her hand that is the chosen card type. If this is not the first copy of Terror from Beyond, draw in this phase, choose 2 card types instead. So this will discard quite a few cards from all of the investigators' hands if you choose the wrong card type. Now, the decks that I'm playing tonight, I'm probably going to be calling event most of the time, because the decks have fewer events than anything else, and there's the best chance when dealing with 4 investigators that that's the one that is not going to hurt us. I've yet to draw 2 of these in a turn, so I'm not too sure what's going to happen if, in the event that I have to call 2 card types. It'll probably depend a great deal on what the which investigator draws it, and we'll have to go from there. So to set up this scenario, you place the museum entrance into play. You also place the museum halls into play, and there are 2 copies of the administration office and the security office, and you shuffle those up and you place 2 random ones on the table. So there's 1 administration office and 1 security office. You also create what is called the exhibit deck, and the exhibit deck contains 6 cards. They're all exhibit halls, and you have to find the restricted hall in order to find the Necronomicon. And the restricted hall is somewhere in the last 3 cards, so you have to find at least 4 you have to go through at least 4 exhibit halls before you have a chance at finding the restricted hall. Now, the way you get the exhibit halls out is you burn clue tokens. I believe it's 1 per investigator, so I'm going to have to burn 4 clue tokens in order to draw the top card of the exhibit deck and put it into play. So that will be our goal. Another note I'm going to make here is that I haven't spent any experience from the first two scenarios. All of these investigators have 8 experience, and I haven't been spending the experience, not because I don't want to play with the cool cards that you get for that experience. I'm just curious to see how far I can get into the cycle before I really feel like I need those better cards to succeed. So far I haven't felt that way, so we'll see how this one goes. In my previous playthroughs of this scenario, I've ducked the hunting horror, and I think I only faced him twice in each game, so hopefully I can repeat that and we can have a smooth playthrough. So I'm going to shuffle all these cards back into the encounter deck, except the Shadow Spawn, which stays out of play. We'll shuffle up the encounter deck. We'll take a look at how the investigators, I've drawn all their hands. The only hand I had to mulligan was Zoe's. Zoe really drew a garbage opening hand. So she's got a copy of Lucky, Dynamite Blast, a Perception, a Kukri, and an Overpower. I'm not seeing the Machete or the Guard Dog that I like, but in this scenario, since there really is only one enemy to deal with, you have a little bit of time to get her set up. Obviously the big problem with Zoe is her weakness, which Smite the Wicked, which can pull the hunting horror out of the deck, and suddenly you have to deal with that and probably add a token to it to Shadow Spawn, making it much tougher than it would otherwise be. Rex got an amazing opening hand. He drew the Magnifying Glass, Dr. Mylan Christopher. Those are 2 cards you want to see. He drew a shortcut, which I decided to keep so he can bolt into the museum and start collecting clues. He also drew a flashlight, which isn't strictly necessary for him, but it's an asset, and I'm hoping to get it down early to avoid any pushed into the Beyonds or Crypt Chills that he might draw. I'd much rather pitch the flashlight than Mylan Christopher or a Magnifying Glass. And he also drew an Unexpected Courage. Jim Culver, he got a Rite of Seeking, a Scrying, a Shriveling. He drew Dr. Henry Armitage, which I added to his deck after the first 2 scenarios. And he got a Holy Rosary, so he also drew a pretty great opening hand. The Scrying is, I found it extremely useful in this scenario. It's not great in 4-player, but the ability to reorganize the encounter deck to make sure that if the hunting horror is going to come out, that Zoe is the one who takes it, is very helpful. It's also helpful if you need to make sure that some of those nasty treacheries that discard cards off the top of the deck, you try to give those to the people who have the best chance of passing them, and away you go. So Scrying can be quite useful. Ashcan Pete, he also got a Magnifying Glass and Peter Sylvester, so he's in pretty good shape. He also drew a Fire Axe, a Rabbit's Foot, and a Working the Hunch, which will enable him to grab a clue at a location for 2 resources. So the investigators start the game at the museum entrance, and it reads, "The Miskatonic Museum is an opulent and stately building supported by expeditions funded by the university. Its sizable collection of exotic artifacts, curios, and art has drawn visitors from all over the country." So we flip that over. If my flip will work, there we go. So the museum entrance, it has a Shroud of 3, and there are 2 clues. Now this is not 2 clues per investigator, this is simply 2 clues. And it has the text, "Investigators at the museum entrance cannot gain resources." So obviously you want to leave the museum entrance as quickly as possible. And it also has the text, "Resign." How important can a book really be anyway? So if you want to give up, there's your resign option right there. Now, the museum halls also has some interesting game text to note. It says the entrance to the museum halls is locked. You cannot move into the museum halls, which is obvious. We need to get these 2 clues. But it also gives us an optional way to get into the museum, which is to break in. And it has the action test fight 5 to attempt to break down the door to the museum. If you are successful, immediately advance to Act 1B. So you're given 2 options to get into the museum. You can grab these 2 clues and get in, or you can just knock down the door. The museum halls is connected to the administration office as well as the security office once it's flipped, and then the various exhibit halls are connected to each other in various ways. But usually what you end up having to do is go back to the museum hall and then move to another exhibit hall. Some of them are connected, some are not. So with that in mind, I believe we are ready to start this game. So we will take a look here at our agenda 1A. It's restricted access. Dr. Armitage has given the university's Latin translation of the Necronomicon to his associate, Harold Walstead, the curator of the Miskatonic University Museum. Worried that someone might still be after the book, you have gone to the museum to recover it, and it has the forced effect. When Hunting Horror enters play, attach the set-aside copy of Shadowspawn to it, or add 1 resource to Shadowspawn if it is already attached. And it has 5 doom on it. So we've got 5 turns to before that will flip. And Act 1A is finding a way inside. Unfortunately, the entrance to the museum is kept locked at this late hour. A security guard is visible through the building's front windows, oblivious to his surroundings. Perhaps you can find a way to get his attention and convince him to let you in. And to advance requires 2 clues, which, happily, we have 2 clues right here. So we are going to start the game. So what we're going to do first, we can choose whichever way we want to do this, and so what we're going to have, we'll have Rex play his magnifying glass as his fast action, and then we'll have him drop down Mylan Christopher as his first action for 4 resources. So that will give him an investigation of 6. And remember, Rex's special ability, he has a response trigger that allows him to grab an extra clue if he succeeds by 2 or more on a skill test, so that's very handy. And so he has no more clues, he's taken 1 action, so we're going to do an investigate. 6 versus 3, we'll see what happens here. 6 versus 3, -4, so he fails. That's unfortunate. So that was his second action. We're going to try it again here and see if we get better luck. -1, that's better. So that is a 5 versus 3, so he gets the 2 clues on the museum entrance, and we will spend those 2 clues to immediately advance to the next. We'll flip our act here and we'll see what it says. It says, if the investigators spent clues to advance, you find the window nearest to the guard and tap it loud enough to get his attention. He gives a startled jump, then shifts open the window. What do you want? He asks timidly. You explain the situation to him and tell him he is in grave danger. He warily opens the front door to the museum, shaking his head. I wasn't even supposed to be here today. Says, choose an investigator to take control of the set-aside Adam Lynch asset. Reveal the museum halls and advance to Act 2A, Night at the Museum. So first of all, we have to go grab Adam Lynch, who is set aside over here in a different deck. So we will just have to go grab him first of all. And I'm going to give control of him to Ashcan Pete, largely because Adam Lynch has While you control him, you treat the double action ability on the security office as if it were a single action ability. And when he leaves play, you remove him from the game and add 1 broken seal token to the chaos bag for the remainder of the campaign. And he only has 1 hit point and 1 sanity. Now there are cards in the encounter deck that do damage to allies. So I would really not like Adam Lynch to go away and add a token. So I've given him to Ashcan, where he has a bit of protection in Duke. If he does need to damage an ally, he can damage Duke instead and keep Adam Lynch alive a little bit longer. And so we have to advance to the Night at the Museum Act, which we'll bring into play here. And it says, Night at the Museum. The Necronomicon is being kept in a restricted hall somewhere in the museum. Adam barely knows his way around and gives a startled jump at every creak of the old building. I just started here last week, he explains. What sort of trouble did you say was going on? You haven't the heart to give him the full story. And the objective is, if an investigator enters the exhibit hall, restricted hall, advance. So our goal now is to reach the restricted hall in time before the hunting horror gets us. And in order to do that, we need clues. So Rex doesn't have any actions left, but I'm going to spend his shortcut here. It's fast, it's free, and I'm going to move him into the museum halls because we have to reveal that anyway. If my flip will work. There we go. Oh, there we go. So Rex moves over here. Museum halls reads, it is connected to each copy of the exhibit hall, and it has the action. Investigators in the museum hall spend 1 clue token per investigator as a group to put the top card of the exhibit deck into play unrevealed. So Rex is finished his turn. I'm going to go over to Pete. Pete is going to pay 2 for a Holy Rosary, I believe, first of all, so he'll have 5 willpower. And I'm going to drop a copy of Scrying into play to get that when we need it. It's got 3 charges. And I'm going to move him into the museum halls as well when he's finished his turn. Zoe. Zoe doesn't have a great lot of options here, but she does have a perception, which is kind of handy, and a lucky. So what we are going to do, she's going to move twice over here to the administration office. And it reads, a sturdy wooden door with a plaque next to it reads, Administration. In the hall outside the doorway, you see a row of paintings depicting the museum's many curators through the years, each adorned with their name and years of employment. Perhaps it's just your imagination, but they look more distressed in recent years. And we flip that over, and it says, Administration Office. You cannot investigate Administration Office while you have 4 or fewer resources. So there are 4 clue tokens on there, but you cannot investigate it while you have 4 or fewer resources. But it's only got 1 shroud, so that's pretty good. So Zoe has 5 resources, so she is okay. So she has a 2 versus 1. Let's pitch the perception to give her a +2. See how we do. She gets a 0. She gets a clue out of the administration office. And she gets to draw a card for the perception. And it is the machete. Excellent. That's just what we're looking for. Alright, and her turn is over. We go to Ashcan Pete. What will Ashcan do? Ashcan has a magnifying glass that he will play for free. Sorry, I forgot that Rex should have a resource here for, oh, not a clue. Should have a resource from Dr. Mylan Christopher. We'll fix that. So we spent 1 for magnifying glass. That's a free action. I'm going to spend 1 to move over here, and then we're going to use Duke's ability to investigate the security office. We'll flip that over. Security office says take double action. Search the top 6 cards of your deck for a card and add it to your hand. Shuffle the rest back into your deck. Limit once per turn. It has a shroud of 2 and 4 clues on it. So we are going 4 versus 2. I am content with that. Draws a -1, so we get a clue. And do we want to bother with working a hunch? No, we'll save that for later. So he is done. Alright, the investigators are done. So what we're going to do, we'll flip them all over. We will give everybody a resource. And everybody draws cards. Zoe gets the Mob Enforcer. Her weakness pops. Mob Enforcer shows up. So we're going to have to deal with him. Rex gets a Mind Over Matter, which isn't going to be very useful because there aren't very many enemies to worry about. We've got a Look What I Found for Jim, so that's good. And oh no, Racked by Nightmares for Pete. So he gets his weakness. Exhaust all assets you control and put Racked by Nightmares into play in your threat area. Assets you control cannot ready. Take 2 actions, discard Racked by Nightmares. So we know what... oh, come on. There we go, we'll do it this way. So we know what Pete's doing next turn. We had a Doom, and we get some encounter cards. So here's Wendy's. Wendy gets the Twist of Fate. Reveal a random token from the Chaos bag. If you reveal the Elder Sign symbol or a positive number, nothing happens. Other numbers take a damage. If you reveal one of the symbols, take 2 horror. And she gets -3, so she takes 1 damage. Rex gets a Cursed Luck, so he is unlucky. So he's going to have to pass a skill check by at least 1 or more to discard Cursed Luck. And Jim also gets a Twist of Fate. So let's see what his... He gets a -2, so Jim takes a damage. And Pete... Oh no, if the Hunting Horror is in play, add 1 Doom to it. If the Hunting Horror is not in play, search the encounter deck, discard pile, and the void for Hunting Horror and spawn it at your location engaged with you. Shuffle the encounter deck. So we have to go get the Hunting Horror. This is unfortunate. I was hoping to avoid that card. So let us look at all cards. Grab ourselves a Hunting Horror. He was gonna... Looks like... Where was he in this deck? How far down? Oh, he was right near the bottom. So the Hunting Horror pops out. And we'll shuffle up the encounter deck. And because of the text on restricted access, when Hunting Horror enters play, attach the set-aside copy of Shadow Spawn to it. So the Hunting Horror is now Shadow Spawned. So the game is well and truly joined now that now that we're going to have to deal with this Hunting Horror this early in the game. This could be a little tricky. Alright, and that means also that if we're going to clear this racked by nightmares, he's going to have to take a hit from the hunting horror, and I'm not sure we want to do that. And Zoe's got her own problems because she's got the mob enforcer. So this is... we have bad news all around here this early in the game. So... this is a tricky situation. If we use Zoe to get rid of the mob... Zoe could parlay with the mob enforcer and still have 2 resources, and then she needs to get down to where Pete is to grab that hunting horror from him. I don't really want her tanking it, but she's got the best chance. Or we just take the horror and the damage. We can take a horror and damage, and then... because if we do the double action, we only take the attack of opportunity once, so we can get to... and then we might be able to evade the hunting horror for a turn. What else do we have here? We've got... Jim has a shriveling, which he could install his shriveling move and shoot the hunting horror, but that's not going to kill it. And Rex is really in no position to be doing anything to anybody. This is a tricky situation. Well, I think what we'll do is we're going to start off with Zoe. Zoe is going to... I really don't want to spend the 4 resources, but I need to get rid of this mob enforcer. So we'll get rid of the mob. We'll spend the 4 resources to parlay with the mob enforcer and get rid of him. That's Zoe's first action. As her second action, she is going to move back to the museum halls. And as her third action, she's going to move here in preparation to deal with the hunting horror at some point. Jim could tank the hunting horror. He's not too bad, actually. He's also got Armitage, who could take some damage for him if necessary. I'm not sure I want to spend the 2 resources on him, though, compared to the shriveling. So what we'll do is we will install the shriveling. Throw the shriveling into play. It's got 4 charges. And he is going to move. And I think what he will do is engage the hunting horror and pull it off Ashcan so he can get his stuff back. So he's done, and she's done. We're going to need to get some resources on Rex before he can go there. So he's probably going to go to the security office as well. But let's deal with Ashcan first. Ashcan will take 2 actions to get rid of the racked by nightmares. And then he is going to... well, what do we do with this? It's a question of how long we can tank the hunting horror for before we need to kill it. I really don't want it popping in and out of play a lot, but dealing with it the first turn of the game is a pretty difficult situation. Not really wild about any of Jim's cards, or sorry, Pete's cards at the moment. You can investigate, which is, well, he's got a 3 versus 2. It's not great. Could take that action to look for a card, but I'm not sure what card I would want at the moment. Tricky. I think we're gonna get Sylvester out, just in case we get pushed to the beyond. Fire Axe might be the better choice, but we'll see. Alright, so that's his 3 actions, and Rex will move. And he will investigate. He is a, normally he'd be a 6, but he's actually a 5 because of the cursed luck. So it's a 5 versus 2. Do we want to ditch anything? I am going to ditch the unexpected courage just to make sure we can 7 versus 2. And it's a -1, so he succeeds. The cursed luck goes away. He gets 2 clues from the security office, and he gets a resource from Mylan Christopher. And he will go again, I guess, because that's what we're going to have to do. So he will get another -1. So we grab the final clue. And he flips. Alright, so Jim will take a horror and a damage from the hunting horror. And is that it? That's all we have to worry about for the moment. So now we have 4 clues, so we can head back to the museum halls and grab our first copy from the exhibit deck, which is going to be key if we want to try to outrace this hunting horror. So what we will do, I guess we'll go to the next turn. Everybody's going to get a resource. And we will see what cards we draw. Zoe gets an emergency cache, that's helpful. Rex gets a knife, which is totally unhelpful. Jim gets an arcane initiate, which I'm not crazy about, and Pete gets a unexpected courage. Now the arcane initiate, she could take a hit from the hunting horror if we swap him back and forth a little bit. He doesn't have a, the hunting horror doesn't have a prey, so if he does ready at the beginning of the enemy phase, we can engage him with anybody we want. So it might be worthwhile locking him down so Jim can get out this arcane initiate, and then we can have the hunting horror kill the initiate. Save us some problems. So we've got to add a doom. Can't forget that. And we go to encounter cards. Here is Zoe's. Zoe gets an obscured fog. I love it. Awesome. There's an obscuring fog where there is no clues. I will take that any day of the week. Rex. Rex gets the Beyond the Veil. Boo. And that surges, so there is also an arcane barrier here. It says attached to your location as an additional cost to move out of this attached location. Test willpower 4. If successful, discard the barrier. Otherwise, you must either cancel the effects of the move or discard the top 5 cards of your deck. So that's not great, considering Rex is there, and we don't want to be discarding cards off the top of our deck. We are on Jim now. Jim gets the Visions of Future. Test willpower 5. For each point you fail by, discard the top card of your deck. He is a willpower of 5, so we're even right now. Anybody got something to pitch to that? Or do we just face it straight up? We'll just face it straight up. And he beats it with a +1. I can't argue with that. That's awesome. And Pete is now terribly unlucky. And all his resources get to ready. As they should have. So that's unfortunate, but not terrible. Not the worst thing that could happen. And that is the end of that. So all of our investigators are ready to go for the next turn. Now, we still have this hunting horror to deal with, which is annoying, and we also have the arcane barrier, which is going to prevent Rex. Basically, we need Rex and Pete to move up here so we can get the we can start getting some of these exhibits out. And then if Rex gets another resource, we can go grab those 3 clues up in the administration office. So what are we going to do with this hunting horror? Who can take it? I think Zoe will be the one who's going to take this thing off our hands. She will go... Oops, she needs a clue. She needs to get rid of resources. There we go. 3 resources for the machete. She will engage the hunting horror off of Jim, and she gets a resource for that due to her special ability. That was her second action, and now third action. She can't kill it. She can do some damage to it. Yeah, she might as well take a swipe at it. So she is a 5 versus a 2. And what do we got here? What does she have? We've got an overpower and a lucky, so we'll just save that stuff for now. We draw the skull, which is a -3 if the hunting horror is at your location. So she is a 5 versus 2. She is a 3. She is a 2 versus 2, so she hits it for 2 damage. And that is her turn. Now we need somebody to leave the... and it's a 4. Okay. I think Jim, Pete. Pete has a clue and he has 3, so what we'll do, but he's got the -1. It's not good. Nobody's got a guts we can pitch. Jim's got a Dr. Henry Armitage he could pitch. But he's gonna help out Zoe. So bring out out the Arcane Initiate. Yeah, let's do it. It's a 4/4, but he's 3/4. If he pitches Armitage, that gives him 5/4. And if we pitch that, that gives him 3/4, 5/4, 7/4. And we succeed. So the arcane barrier will go away. Jim will move there. Jim needs to wait for Rex to show up. So what we could do, he needs at least 4 to do that. It's 4 or fewer resources, so he needs 5 resources. So we'll just gain a couple of resources. And because he succeeded, the cursed luck goes away as well. Booyah. Excellent. Alright, Jim. Jim is going to bring out the Arcane Initiate. The Arcane, so after the Arcane Initiate enters play, we add a Doom to her. That's fine. We can exhaust her to search the top 3 cards of our deck for a spell. So we'll look at the top 3 cards here and see what we get. There is a spell, a Ward of Protection. I will take it. We will shuffle. And so that was his first action. Second action, we are going to engage the Hunting Horror, pull it away from Zoe, and he's going to kill the Arcane Initiate this round with the Hunting Horror. And or we could just kill it. I don't know if I want to kill it or not, though. Actually, I should have done something else before I do that. I need to take one action before I do that. I don't really feel the need to scry. It's the one that brought out the Hunting Horror in the first place that I wanted to look for. So I'm going to gain a resource just because I want to be able to play my Ward of Protection if we draw something nasty, and we will engage the Hunting Horror. And Jim is done. Rex will move. Rex will take the action on the museum halls, so we spend 3 clues, 2 clues there and 1 clue there to draw the top card of our exhibit deck, and we'll just drop it right there. So that's fair game. That was his second action. As his third action, we're going to go up to the administration office and grab those clues next turn. And he is done. So that is everybody. Alrighty. The Hunting Horror attacks Jim, and the Arcane Initiate dies. So, what do we have here? So, everybody gets a resource and cards for people. Let's see. Guard dog, excellent. A hyper awareness for Rex, that's always helpful. A perception for Jim, and a manual dexterity for Pete. So we are entering the third turn. I guess technically the fourth turn, because we're placing our third doom. And we have our first exhibit hall out, so let's place a doom. Let's draw some encounter cards. Zoe. Zoe draws an ephemeral exhibits. Test intellect 3. If you fail, lose 1 action for each point you fail by. That is unfortunate. That is a 3 versus a 2. So she's already failing once. Jim can help her out. Is it terrible if she loses some actions? That is the question. Because Jim can easily kill the hunting whore if necessary. I am not going to pitch anything to that. I do not care if she loses actions this turn. She gets the cultist. -1 if you fail, search the encounter deck, discard pile in the void for the hunting horror and spawn it at your location if able. Well, the hunting horror is there, so he doesn't do anything. She fails by 1, so she loses 2 actions this turn. So we are going to put, let's see, we'll put 2 green markers on her just to let us know that she only gets 1 action this turn. Rex. Rex gets slithering behind you. If the hunting horror is in play, add 1 doom to it. If it is not in play, search the encounter deck, discard pile, and the void for the hunting horror and spawn it. The hunting horror gets a doom. So, unless we kill the hunting horror, we are advancing next turn regardless. Jim gets... Now this is one of the cards that hurts allies. Passage into the Veil. Test willpower 3. This test has +2 difficulty if the hunting horror is at your location. If you fail, you must either discard the top 5 cards of your deck or take 1 direct damage and deal 1 damage to each of your allies. It's a 5/5. I don't have a lot of willpower icons right now. This is sort of annoying me. We do have a dynamite blast we could pitch to give him a fighting chance. Yeah, Zoe will pitch the dynamite blast. We're not going to use it right now. That'll be a 6/5. Oh! Epic fail, epic fail. Choose 1, discard top 5 cards, or take a direct damage. And I'm going to just discard the top 5 cards. Oh, wait a second. What am I doing? I don't have to do that. I'm going to cancel that. That's nonsense. We'll just cancel that. That's part of the problem when you're playing 4 decks, is it sometimes you forget that you've got cards that you can play. So I'm going to cancel that treachery and take the horror instead. That makes things a lot easier. Alright, that crisis averted. Let's see what Pete gets. Pete also gets a passage into the Veil. Now this is bad for him because he is the one who has Adam Lynch. And deal 1 damage to each of your allies. So we really want to... He's probably going to discard cards from the top of his deck if he fails this. Fortunately, it's a 4/3 right now, but I don't think he has anything. Well, he's got a rabbit's foot. Rabbit's foot will go away to make it a 5-3. Let's see how we do. We get a 0, we pass. No problem. Alright, we'll ready up our investigators here. Zoe gets her 1 action this turn. Jim can fight and kill the hunting horror if necessary, so we do not advance this turn. And let's go with the easy one right now. Rex is up at the administration office. He is a 6 versus 1. Draws a skull. That is -1 unless the hunting horror is there. So he gets 2 clues. Rex is such a machine. He is so amazing at grabbing those clues from that location. And he gets a resource for Mylan, of course. We'll do it again. Pow, -2. He still succeeds by a bucket load. Grabs that clue. Grabs another resource. And that's cleared, so we're going to move back to the museum halls. Alright. That leaves us with Pete. And we've got this exhibit hall out there that we can go to, so we are going to exhaust Duke. We'll travel there. Flip it over, see what we've got. It is the Medusa exhibit. 2 shroud. There are 4 clues. After you fail a skill test while investigating this location, discard an asset you control. Now, that isn't very good at all. Fortunately, we have a 5 investigate. We've got 4 with Duke, and then +1 with the magnifying glass. So we've got a 5 versus 3. We'll be content with that. And we get an Elder Sign. Awesome. +2, and we get to ready Duke. So we get a clue. Let's do 5 versus 2 again. -2, we succeed. And so Duke is exhausted. So we could... let's just pay the 2. We're gonna we'll play Working a Hunch. It's fast, so we can grab a clue. And let's pitch the Manual Dexterity to ready Duke. And we'll do it again. And we succeed. And that is how you explore a location in 1 turn. Way to go, Pete. Awesome. I like that. So Rex is finished. Pete is finished. Jim. Poor Jim. Now Zoe has the 1 action, but we can't spend... we can spend her action to move her back, and then next to the museum halls, and then next turn we can use an action from Rex to spend and grab the... So I think what Jim is going to do is shoot the hunting horror in the face with shriveling. So we will do that. He is a 5 versus 2. Any tricksiness we want to get to? Nope. 5 versus 2, he's -3. He succeeds. The hunting horror dies. And it goes away. Off to the void. That was his first action. His second action is going to be to move up here and got that right of seeking, which is going to come in really handy here in a few minutes. But he's also got the look what I found, which is pretty good. So I think we're going to gain a resource. And that'll be his turn. And then Zoe, all she's going to do for her turn is just move back here. Because that's pretty much all she can do due to that ephemeral exhibits card we got last turn. So all the investigators have gone. Everybody gets a resource. Let's draw some cards. Zoe gets an unexpected courage. Rex gets a kukri, which isn't much help. Jim gets his second copy of Scrying. And Pete gets an overpower. So he's got an overpower and an axe. I guess if the hunting horror comes back, we can cut him down to size. Let's add a doom. So we're going to advance next turn whether we want to or not. So let's see, Zoe pushed into the beyond. Boo. So we choose and shuffle a non-story asset to control into the deck. So away goes the machete, and we discard 3 cards, none of which were the machete, so that's fine. Rex gets the Beyond the Veil, but he already has a Beyond the Veil, so that simply surges into a Cursed Luck. Jim gets the Passage into the Veil, which is test 3 versus his 5. So I like those odds. And it's a 0, so he passes. And Pete gets the Visions of Future Past, test 5 for each point he fails by. He loses the top card of his deck. So he's a 4 versus a 5 at the moment. He's by himself, so it's just whatever we get. So he's a 3 versus a 5, so he loses 2 cards off the top of his deck. And I don't mind seeing my weakness hit the discard pile. Awesome. So that's when the encounter deck can do some work for you. And that is it for the Mythos phase. So we'll flip everybody over here. Now, we can get our second exhibit out and our third exhibit out this turn. The way it works. So what we will do, let's get Pete. Pete can move back to the museum hall. Pete can take the action to spend the 4 clues to get our second exhibit out. There, and then he will exhaust Duke to move to said exhibit. And investigate. But there are no clues. It is the Athabascan exhibit. Forced, after you enter this location, lose all of your remaining actions and immediately end your turn. While you are at this location, you gain +2 agility. Well, that is fine, because that was his last action anyway. And I can't think of a better way of exploring a useless location than using your last action to do it. So, that gives us... who has the clues? Zoe has the clues, and Rex has the clues. I believe... Now, if Rex does it, that means he's gonna lose an action, so we'll have Zoe do it. Zoe will use the action on the museum hall. to explore, get our third exhibit hall down. So, we're at an important juncture of the game here because we've got 3 out, so any of the next 3 can be the restricted hall, at which point we are in a position to win the game. Now, the only victory points in this scenario are in the exhibit halls, and it's a maximum of 5, I believe, is the best you can do. So I've got 1 right now. This is probably, and then so the next 4 cards are going to be experience if I want them. So depending on how nasty things are getting with the hunting horror, we can either hopefully speed through if the restricted hall comes up quickly, or take our time a little bit and go about it that way. So that was Zoe's first action. Zoe's second action, we're going to spend the emergency cache to give her some resources. And we're going to bring out her dog. Whoops. Bring out her dog for 3. So he gets her pet. He's always handy. He's better in the other scenarios when you've got those evil whippoorwills walking around. He can whack those quite easily. So Zoe is done for the day. Rex, he has bad luck, but that's fine. We can deal with that. I really don't feel the need to play... Well, do I play that? Or do I risk it? Nah, we're just going to keep going. We'll just keep on trucking here. So Rex moves to this one. It is the Hall of the Dead. It is Shroud 3. After you fail a skill test while investigating this location, take 1 horror. And it's the victory point. So it has 8. Rex is at 6. But he is at 5 because of this thing. So it's 5 versus 3. Now what we could do, we could install the flashlight and then investigate and make sure that we succeed to get rid of that cursed luck. I think that's what I'm going to do this turn. I want to make sure I can get rid of that cursed luck. So next turn I can grab 6 clues if I can. So we'll do that, and then we'll spend 1 to make this a Shroud 1, so it's a 5 versus a 1. And he gets a 0. So not only do we get rid of the cursed luck, but we get 2 clues out of the deal. And of course, Mylan Bucks. Can't forget the Mylan Bucks. And so that was his turn. Who has clues and who does not? He has clues. Nobody else has clues. So what we will do... he's a little light on... what are we going to do here? We're sort of... The Athabascan Hall came up at a bad time. Because I need another... Ideally, I'd like to have another location to send Pete to, but with Rex there, Rex can grab all 6 of those clues next turn without any risk of taking a horror. But he can also grab clues there, so what we will do, Pete will move 1. Do we go for the clue or not? It'd be a 5 versus 3, and if we fail, we take a horror. I do want to spend a scrying token this turn. What is the encounter deck at here? 15 cards, yeah, so I do want to spend a scrying token just in case. His weakness has already gone through, so let's draw a card, and then we'll investigate with Duke. We'll move him there, so it is a 5 versus 3. I'm content to hang on to the rabbit's foot for now. Oh no, he failed. So he takes a horror. That's no big deal. No big deal at all. Alright. So he's done. Now we've got Jim. Jim is going to spend a scrying token. So we exhaust scrying, spend a charge, and we will look at the top 3 cards of the deck. Just to see what is coming our way next turn. Okay, so we've got a Stalked in the Dark, which is if the hunting horror is in play, it readies, engages you, and attacks each investigator at your location. Otherwise, Stalked in the Dark gains Surge. We've got the Terror from Beyond, so we know that's coming. That's good. And we've got an Obscured by Fog, which would be bad if it lands on the Hall of the Dead. So, what we need to do, we want the Hall, we'll give the Hall to Zoe, or the Obscuring Fog to Zoe. Now, I believe the Hunting Horror comes out. Does it not on the second? I might have to spawn the Hunting Horror here, so... Play engages, attacks each investigator at your location. This is tricky. I cannot remember for the life of me what happens when Agenda 1A flips. So... I think what we need to do... He can afford to take another hit if necessary. And then we've got the Terror from Beyond coming, so we can check and see. So if she loses an asset, it's her knife. We don't really want to do that. Event. We lose that. Event, she loses her lucky. That's not the worst thing in the world. Event, he'll lose his Look What I Found, and so if we guess event, we're only going to lose a little bit. We're not going to lose too badly. So if it engages him... This is an interesting problem, because I can't remember. I don't really want him to be... Yeah, Zoe's in a pretty good spot. Alright, we'll leave it that way. So that's the power of scrying that right there, you know. If that Obscuring Fog had hit the exhibit hall, that would have really slowed us down. So that way we can avoid it. It sort of limits us what we can do with Jim now, because Jim has to stay sort of where he is. Otherwise he's going to be in trouble. What do we have for? We've got 2 arcane slots, so we'd have to lose something if we want the Rite of Seeking. He's in a good position to investigate. So he scries. Jim's just gonna draw a couple cards, I think, at this juncture. Okay, that changes things. Jim has a guard dog. Jim is going to bring out the guard dog. To protect himself from the hunting horror that he knows is lurking in the museum. Alright. That is everybody's turn. So we get some resources. Draw some cards. She gets a guard dog as well. Another guard dog. He gets his scavenging, which probably won't get played this game. I've never really been able to get that combo to work. If he succeeds and evades a non-elite enemy, that's useless. So that'll get pitched to something. And we are ready for advancements. So we add a doom. So the agenda is advancing this turn. It says, from the shadows of the museum halls a terrible creature slithers forth, long and serpentine, and propelled by black leathery wings. If the hunting horror is in play, add 1 doom to it. If the hunting horror is not in play, search the encounter deck, discard pile, and the void for hunting horror, and spawn it in the museum halls if able. Shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck. So, the hunting horror shows up here. Now, what we can do, because we know he's gonna bounce. He's gonna engage Jim. He's gonna bounce over to Jim and then attack everybody. So we know what we can do. Let's put it with Zoe, because she's going to get the resource anyway. Now, what does this thing do? So it doesn't gain anything out of that. So that's good. As long as we don't pop the hunting horror back and forth too much, we'll still be okay. Alright, so the Agenda 2A key comes out. Shadows deepen. The shadows in the museum grow and become darker. As the shadows lengthen and shift, they begin to suggest the sinewy body of an uncanny creature darting at the periphery of your awareness. When the hunting horror enters play, attach the set-aside copy of Shadow Spawn to it, or add 1 resource to Shadow Spawn if it is already attached. So, what this means now is if we kill the hunting horror and then bring him back, he's going to get a copy. He's going to get a token on Shadow Spawn. So, but we've got 7 turns basically before we advance to 3A. So I think we're in fairly good shape. We have to shuffle everything into the encounter deck though, first of all. So let's do that. Oh, yeah, that was my scrying. That was a bad move. I knew that was a bad move. I shouldn't scry when there's going to be a reshuffle. Alright, we've reshuffled. Let's see what we get. Zoe? There is a locked door. Well, the locked door has to go on that one. Fortunately, ash can is there to unlock the door if necessary. Rex gets the Terror of Beyond. Now, we already knew that was coming, so we'll call event. So she loses that. He loses his mind over matter. Jim loses his what I found, and Pete loses the bait and switch that he was never going to play. We go to Jim. Jim gets a Crypt Chill. Uh-oh, Crypt Chill, test 4 versus 5. I've got nothing I can pitch to it. Does Zoe? Zoe's got a guts. Now, is it... yeah, I don't want to lose anything, so we'll make him a 7 versus 4. And that's fine. He passes, and Zoe gets a card. Another machete. Perfect timing. That was Jim. Now Pete. Pete gets the Visions of Future Past again. Test 5. He is a 4. We'll just take what comes our way. He's a 3. He discards 2 cards. So he loses an Overpower, and look what I found. Alright. So we have the Hunting Horror in play again. So we've got guard dogs. We can basically tank this thing for a couple turns if we need to. Because I don't necessarily want... the Hunting Horror comes out one more time in this game. At the end. At the very end it comes back, so if we can prevent it from getting more any tokens on Shadow Spawn before then, we'll be in pretty good shape. So, what we will do, first of all, we need Pete to break this locked door down. He is a 3. He is a 4. He has a 4/4. So we could pitch a rabbit's foot. Do we have anything here we can pitch? This could slow us down if we miss. But he is a 3, 4, 5. This is a tricky one. -1. We succeed. Awesome. Door goes down. Bye-bye, door. Now we want to take... we'll use Duke. It is a 5 versus 3. That is a -1. Grab a... why did it grab that? Don't grab that. Grab the clue. Now, what we need to do... Pete is low on cards. But I'm going to discard the Overpower to bring him back up. Or do I discard the Axe? I'm going to discard the Axe to get Duke to work again. And that's another -1. So we grab that. So the reason I wanted to do that was so Rex can grab the last 4 clues and move, and then we can have Jim spend to pull our next exhibit, because if it is the restricted hall, we can tank the hunting horror where it is, send all the investigators in to clear the exhibit hall. We're only going to get 3 out of the 5 XP, but I'm happy with that. I think I'd be quite happy to take that. So let's see how we do here with Rex. So Jim is gone. Rex is a 6 versus 3. We're going to use his flashlight to make it a 1. So he gets 2 clues out of that. And a resource from Mylan. And we're going to do it one more time. And he gets a -1. So we get the last 2 clues, which is key and we can now move back here, and that is his turn. So what we want Jim to do, Jim can pull the hunting horror and then deal it a damage next turn when it kills his dog. He's always got a couple of dogs we can use to... I feel bad about feeding the dogs to the hunting horror, but we are close. So what we can do here is Jim will spend his first action to spend the clues. I believe that's legit. Yeah, as a group. Why is he locked? Do not lock him. So we'll spend 4 clues. To grab our next exhibit hall location. That was his first action. Second action, we are going to use a scrying token, because I definitely want to know what's coming now. Just in case there's an extra attack coming, I need to know. There is not an extra attack. But the hunting horror is going to get a doom. That's fine. Okay, but we have this thing, the passage into the veil, which we sort of want Jim to draw. We've got a pushed into the beyond, which we can push on Rex, because he can discard his flashlight and get rid of that. Deal with that issue. And the slithering, there's not much we can do about that. It's going to go on. Zoe can draw that. So that was his second action, and as for his third action, he is going to pull the hunting horror and engage it. Zoe is going to use her turn to play her machete down again. So that's good. And she still has her thing, but it's not going to fire. Her weakness won't fire. That's an interesting situation. I can't search the encounter deck for for a thing. So I guess she could draw some cards if she wanted to. She's going to get a resource when she engages the hunting horror again. She's going to draw a card. Okay, well, we'll take that any day of the week, and we will install that. So she gets her cross, which is even better. Alright, Zoe's done. The hunting horror will attack, and the poor guard dog will die. Well, no, the guard dog will not die. Rex will take the horror. The guard dog can take the damage. And the hunting horror will take a damage, because the guard dog doesn't like slithering beasts. Alright, so we've done that. Let's ready everybody up. Everybody gets a resource, and we get some cards. So let's see what we get this turn. We got a physical training. I'm not sure if that's going to make it to the table. Another knife. As you can see, the Rex build isn't particular. It was supposed to be using to get scavenging down to be able to discard knives and recycle them and stuff like that, but it's just not happening. The rosary for Jim, and another copy of Pete for Ashcan. So we go to our encounter phase. Since we did use the scrying token, we know what's coming. We've got a slithering, so sorry, we need a doom first. We get a slithering, so it gets a doom. We get a pushed into the beyond, which we knew was coming, thank goodness, so Rex can get rid of his useless flashlight. And even if he takes 2 horror, he takes 2 horror. Look at that. It's a rare trigger right there. So he takes 2 horror, but he's got 9 sanity, so that's not an issue. Jim gets the test 3. Well, it's a test 5 now because of the hunting horror. And he is a 5, so it's a 5/5. What do we got here? He has a rosary. We could make it 6. Does anybody have a... Yeah. It's 5/5, right? 5/5. She's gonna pitch her unexpected courage to help Jim out here. So it's gonna be a 7/5 for Jim. We like those odds. 7/5, perfect. 5/5. And Pete, I drew a token for some reason, not an encounter card. A Terror from Beyond. Now, I'm going to call event, because I always call event when I pull Terror from Beyond. Assets all round. Assets all round. Oh, there's an event. And assets and skills all around. So that was didn't do us too much damage. All right. So what we need, Rex has 2 clues, and he has 2 clues. So what we can do, Jim can move first. Jim will use the Museum Hall's text to bring out another location. So we'll spend Rex's clues and Pete's clues to pull another location out. And then Pete is going to use Duke to wander over to this exhibit hall here and see what's happening. So what we get, we got the Egyptian exhibit. There are 8 clues. It is Shroud of 3, and if you fail a skill test while investigating, you lose an action. So we are a 5-3, and so we succeed, so he gets a clue. Now, we can basically bounce the hunting horror between us as much as we wish at this point, because we have so many dogs to protect us. So he did the clue. Oh yeah, he moved, did the clue, and then investigated. So he's done. So what we can do is use Rex to look at the other one. Zoe and Jim can basically work the hunting horror, and then hopefully, if this is the restricted hall, we'll advance, and then we'll be in really good shape. So let's do that. See if we... The other 2 times I've played this, the restricted hall was always the last card. So I would like to maybe get a change here. Let's see what we get. No, it's the last card once again. Alright, the exhibit hall. The nature exhibit. Forced, after you enter this location, discard 2 cards from your hand at random. Okay, so it has 4 clues, and we discard 2 cards at random, so we lose a... for some reason this is a bit of a bug, so they end up in the wrong discard pile. So we lost a scavenging and a knife. No great loss. There are 4 clues there. He is a 6 versus 4. Now the question is, we have a ton of resources from Mylan. We could use... We know the last location is the restricted hall. So let's spend 2 resources to grab that. And now we can spend resources at our leisure. He is a 6 versus a 4, so we will spend... Now it's an 8 versus a 4. We draw -1, so 7-4, so he gets 2 clues off that. And he gets a resource from Mylan. And he is done. Alright, we've got Jim and Zoe. Jim and Zoe's hands are tied up with the hunting horror, but it's not going to cause them too much problems, I don't think. Zoe could engage it. Now, I don't want to kill it before I pop the... So what we'll do, Zoe could... Well, no, we can't get another guard dog. That's out of the question, because we only have 1 ally slot. We could get a kukri out, just in case we get a push to the beyond. We do have 1 scrying token left, which we can use. So she's going to take the hunting horror this time. So she will do 2 resources just to get the knife out, just in case we get it pushed into the beyond. She will gain a resource and then engage him to get another resource, which she will plug into her necklace to do a damage. So that's awesome. Jim, what's Jim got going here? Jim has a scrying token, so we're going to spend that token to look at the top 3 cards again and see what is to be seen. Because we've got arcane barriers and locked doors and stuff like that that can cause all sorts of problems. Okay, we have a pushed into the beyond. We have a slithering, which is going to add another doom to the hunting horror, and a cursed luck. So what we could do, actually I don't really mind that. We can use the push to get rid of the kukri. Jim will give the hunting horror doomed, and Jim can be the unlucky one. So that is exhausted and done. So do we go for another scrying, or do we go for the right of seeking in a turn? Because we're going to need it for the final push. Well, we could end this, we could get 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we can get 4 out of the 5. That's probably good enough. So he will take a resource, I think. And he's going to get his right of seeking going next turn. And I believe... is that it? He did that. Took a resource. Draw a card. Sure. Well, he gets the guts. Alright. So, you're done. You're done. And everybody's done. The hunting horror attacks. It hits... ooh, I don't want to hit the guard dog, because the guard dog will kill it. Don't want to kill it quite yet, so Zoe will take the hit. That's fine. Zoe will take the hit, this one. Alright, so we ready up everything. Everybody gets a resource. And everybody gets some cards. Let's see what we get here. Zoe gets a knife. Rex gets a perception. That's going to come in handy. Jim gets a drawn to the flame, which is awesome. And Pete gets a look what I found, which is awesome. We had a doom. Our first card is pushed into the beyond. We will discard, we will shuffle the kukri back in and discard the top 3 cards. Whoops. Whoops, whoops. That was the wrong deck. Let's see. I shuffled the kukri into the wrong deck. Let's pull that out. Put it into the right deck here. 1, 2, 3. So no horror for her. That was actually a bit risky, because she's not, 6 sanity isn't a huge pool to work with. We know we get another doom on the hunting horror. We know Jim is unlucky, but we don't know what happens to Pete. Pete gets this thing. Tests 3. So he is a 4. We do not want to do. We can ditch an extra copy of Sylvester to do make him a 5 versus 3. And we get an elder sign. So that, yeah, +2, no problem. We go to the next turn. So what we can do here, we want to reveal the restricted hall as quickly as we can, because that means we can kill the hunting horror, and chances are it's not coming back. Now, are there... I believe we have... Let's just look at the discard pile. We have 2 copies of Slithering Behind You in the discard pile. So the hunting horror isn't coming back if we kill it. So what we need to do, we have him at the nature exhibit. He can use a perception to give him an 8 versus 4. Now, there's this tentacle. We knew it was coming. That's the first one we've had all game. So we knew that was coming at some point. No problem. We will spend a couple resources off of for hyper awareness. We will do it again. We get the clue. We get the 2 clues we need, and we'll move. Whoops! Come on, clue. Come with me. And we'll move Rex back. Now, at this point, this is an interesting situation, because what we can basically do, we drag the hunting horror with us. Jim can trigger he can spend the 4 clues, so we'll do that right now to bring out our final location, which we know is the restricted hall. Jim can move there. Thus flipping our... when Jim moves there. So it says, while hunting horror is at this location, you cannot investigate this location. And there are 4 clues. There are 8 clues there, and it has a shroud of 3. And if an investigator enters the exhibit hall, we advance Act 2A, so we flip it. When you enter the restricted hall, you find the curator of the museum lying in a pool of blood, his intestines strewn about in a grotesque display. Your stomach turns over and you resist the urge to vomit. Whatever did this, it's still nearby. It says search the encounter deck, discard pile, the void, and all play areas for the hunting horror and place it in the exhibit hall. Ready. Advance to 3A. So Zoe loses the hunting horror, the hunting horror goes over to Jim, which is fine, and we advance to 3A. If there are no clues remaining, it says somewhere in this area is Olaus Wormius's Latin translation of the Necronomicon. You must find it and escape while you can. Objective: if there are no clues remaining in the exhibit hall, restricted hall, advance. So basically we steal these 8 clues and we advance to Act 3B. But first we have to deal with the hunting horror. That is going to be easier than we expected, because Jim can either just flat out kill it, or we can do it the other way by having Zoe kill it. So, or what we can do is just take an action. The hunting horror will do an attack of opportunity on the dog, which the dog will then kill the hunting horror. So, but we don't really have any things we can do. However, that is interesting. You cannot investigate, but you can draw into the flame. So Jim will do that. Jim will draw into the flame. The hunting horror makes an attack of opportunity, which hits the dog. The dog dies, and so does the hunting horror. So the hunting horror is off to the void again. Sans horror. And sans damage. Now Jim has to draw a card from the encounter deck, which is that, the Beyond the Veil, which is going to surge into an arcane portal. So to move in or out, we have to test 4 or discard the top 5 cards of our deck. That's fine. So Jim gets 2 clues out of the deal. So he did that, he moved, and then he played Drawn to the Flame. We killed the hunting horror. We drew the arcane barrier, which is preventing, which means everybody's got to get in there somehow. Fortunately, we have Zoe here. Zoe doesn't have a guts. I thought she did have a guts. So this is a curious situation. So can he... Otherwise you must... If it cancels the effects of the move, discard the top 5 cards of your deck. So he can move out and cancel it. I don't think I'm really in any danger. He's got 1 and he's got 1, but they both have 18 plus cards in their deck, so it's not going to make much of a difference. So he is done. Now Zoe is kind of useless now, in a way, because she's only got an intellect of 2 versus a 3. Jim could help her out a little bit, I guess, if we wanted to grab a clue. Or she could go there and help him, but he has that. He has a look what I found to grab some extra clues if he fails a test. So what do we do with her? Well, let's do the easy one first. Let's try to get the exhibit, the Egyptian exhibit emptied. So he will use Duke. That is a 5 versus 3. he gets an Elder Sign. We get to Ready Duke. So there's one. Let's do it again. Got a 0. There's another clue. And let's pitch the Overpower to Ready Duke and do it again. Skull, -1. We get a clue. Alright, so this is an interesting, creates an interesting proposition. This could be, next turn could be the last turn of the game, because we can basically send Rex in. Rex can clean that up in no time. Or we can send Rex here. What does Jim have? Jim's got a Perception and a Rite of Seeking that he could use. So we could... Yeah, Jim's gonna... Rex is gonna go here. It's his first move. He is a 6 versus 3. He is a 7 versus 3. So he gets 2 clues. So he gets his Mylan bucks, and he gets a clue. 2 clues, which we'll subtract over here. And so he moved first action, second action. We'll make him a 7 versus 3, so we can't really fail. And we succeed. We get the last 2 clues. Alright. And he's done. Zoe might as well move in there, because... what is it? 4 versus 4. So she's going to move in there. And she'll pitch the physical training to give her a 5 versus 4. And she succeeds. We discard the Arcane Barrier. 5 versus 4. She discarded the barrier. That was her first action. Second action, she might as well investigate. She's got nothing better to do. So she's a 2, but Jim can pitch a Perception to give her a 4 versus 3. Not the greatest odds in the world, but she fails barely. And yeah, well, she's just gonna, well, no, we don't want to draw a card. We don't want to draw a card because we don't want the Hunting Horror coming back. So we will just gain a resource. That's all she's gonna do. Oh, and this lucky thing. Oh, no. That stays. That was Jim's deal. Alright. So we're done. There are no monsters to attack us. So we just draw. Everybody gets a clue. And some cards. Now this is interesting. Discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until an enemy is discarded. Attach Smite to any location farthest from you. When the game ends, if attached. So there is no enemy in the encounter deck, because the Hunting Horror is in the void. So basically this does nothing. So this does nothing. We discard all the cards in the encounter deck, which is kind of bad because we get a reshuffle out of it, which I didn't want. So we'll just I guess we'll just shuffle that into the encounter deck, because her ability will discard the entire encounter deck and nothing will happen. So there's a... we'll take it. We get a deduction for Rex, which is going to help us. Jim gets Final Rhapsody. So, Final Rhapsody, we reveal 5 tokens from the bag. For each skull or tentacle revealed, take 1 damage and 1 horror. Now, I'm not sure Octagon can pull 5 and keep them out, so I'm just going to pull 5 and we'll take whatever we get. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a big 0. So he took 0 damage and 0 horror. I'll take that any day. And he gets a lucky. We add a doom. We are approaching the final turn. So Zoe gets... let's just give the encounter deck a shuffle. Final shuffle before we do this. Zoe gets, if the hunting horror is in play, it readies, engages you, and attacks each investigator at your location. Otherwise it gains surge. It gains surge. She gets visions of future past. Test 5. She's a 4. She loses a card. Rex gets ephemeral exhibits. He is a 5 versus 3. And for each point he fails by, he loses an action. Yeah, okay. He didn't fail. Jim gets this. Well, this is a bit of a bigger deal for Jim, because he is actually a 4 versus 5 because of the cursed luck he has. Does he have a guts? He sure does. He is a 6 versus 5. He is a 7 versus 5. And that's Jim's lucky number, and that's a 0, so he takes no damage. And Pete gets Terror from Beyond. We call event. There are no events there. There are no events there. There are no events there. And, oh, he has 2 events. Well, that sucks to be him. That's fine. We go to what could be the final turn of the game, if we are lucky. So what we need to do... Did he pass by 1? Yes, he did. So he is lucky again. He is lucky again. Let us... Basically, I need 6 clues for the win. So Rex will go... Is it connected to anything he can get to? No, it is not. So 1, 2... And Rex can grab 1, 2. It is a... He is a 6 versus a 3. He is a 7 versus a 3. Let's make it 8 versus 3. versus 3. 9 versus 3 is good enough, because if we draw the -4, then he will be at 5 versus 3. But that's okay. So we get 3 clues off there. Back grab. Remove the damage from Jim. So we'll take 3 clues, 2, 3, and put 3 clues on him. 1, 2, oops, 2, 2, 3. And that was his turn. There are 3 clues left. Pete will move 1. Pete will use Duke to move 2 to go there. He is a 5 versus 3. Oh no, he failed. Oh well. 4 minus 3, yeah. And I have no cards, so I will just draw a card. He is done. Now, we have the right of seeking. Do we have anybody with icons? Nobody has any intellect icons. That's a bit of a problem, except Jim. That's okay. Jim is going to use his first action, 2, 3, 4, to spend the right of seek, to install the right of seeking over the scrying. Drop that down. That gets 3 charges. We will spend a charge. It is a 5 versus 3 for 2 clues. We get 2 clues. Can we do it this turn? We will spend another resource, and no! We fail. 5 versus 3. We failed. I should have pitched the scrying. That's fine. Live and learn. That was a mistake. I got overexcited. So he's done. But we do have Zoe. Zoe has 3 actions. Zoe doesn't really have any investigate icons she can work with. So what we will do is we will draw her a card. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Beautiful card. We drew her a card. We will spend the 4 resources to install a right of seeking. Gets 3 charges. We will spend a charge. It is a 4 versus 3. Jim has some help for her. It is a 5 versus 3, and it is a 0, and we win the game. Kaboom. If there are no clues remaining in the exhibit hall, advance. So we advance. At last you find the locked case containing the Necronomicon. The tome, over 800 pages in length, is filled with all manner of macabre imagery, formulae, spells, prophecies, and descriptions of creatures from beyond the threshold of space. Without a doubt, it is a dangerous book, but its secrets could be very useful. The investigators must decide. Choose one. It is too dangerous to keep around. We have to destroy it. R1, or it's too valuable to destroy. We have to keep it safe. R2. So we end the game. We get the full 5 victory points because we cleared all of the exhibit hall locations. The hunting horror is not worth anything, and we have to choose whether to destroy the Necronomicon or to keep it safe. Now, I've played this before, so I know at least what one of the answers is. I'm going to think about it. I think this group takes a different path, so they may go a different way than the other groups I've played. So, but yeah, that's Miskatonic University. It's Miskatonic Museum, the first Mythos pack for the Dunwich Legacy cycle. It's not the I think it's a pretty easy scenario. I mean, the fact that there's only one enemy in it makes Zoe sort of tricky to play, in that you really don't want to smite the Wicked while the hunting horror is in the deck, so you have to pull it out. You really need to try to manage the Shadow Spawn, and if you can tank the hunting horror, and I got pretty lucky there with pulling those guard dogs right at the right time, so I could tank the hunting horror for a few turns and get to the restricted hall, so I didn't have to pull it yet again and give it a counter and make it a little harder to kill. I'm pretty sure I could have killed it quite easily, even if it was a slightly more menacing hunting horror. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario. I'm not sure if it's one of my favorite scenarios. I still enjoy playing the Midnight Masks from the core box, and this one's very focused on clues, and in a game like this, I mean, Rex he's just a monster. You know, being able to pull up 2 clues a turn, or 2 clues per action, is so strong that he can just clear locations in 1 turn is amazing, and bounce around. I think with some of the experience, you know, if I was to spend some of the experience I've got, you could, you know, buy some. There's that one car, I think it's Pathfinder, that allows you to make a move as a free trigger, which would be amazing to get him around the board even faster. Jim did an admirable job of tanking the hunting horror, and we didn't even really need the shriveling, but he, you know, came in big with the Rite of Seeking at the end. And Pete just does what Pete does. You know, he grabs the clues. He's good at breaking down doors and fixing all those little problems that you might run into along the way. We saw 2 Beyond the Veils, but they didn't really affect us too badly. I think Rex had 18 cards left in his deck, and Jim had 17, so we were in no real danger of dying there. So that's the Miskatonic Museum. If you like what you see, by all means run out, pick it up, set it up and play it, and get those experience points. Enjoy the first Mythos pack from the Dunwich Legacy cycle, and yeah. So if you enjoyed this playthrough, leave me a comment. If you saw any mistakes I made, by all means point them out. Let me know what you think of this scenario. Let me know what you think of this scenario if you get a chance. You can leave a comment below and hit the thumbs up, so that would be great. And if you subscribe, you'll be notified when I release other playthroughs or reviews or whatnot. So I think that's gonna do it for me tonight. That's Man from Leng. You can reach me at if you want to drop me an email, it's manfromleng, manfromleng @gmail.com. Thanks very much, and have a good night.